So yeah, Kurt Angle. He's in TNA now, so we'll be talking about him for a while.
I'm very excited to at least watch Kurt Angle.
Vince Russo!
From the highs to the lows.
Had sworn off professional wrestling. Those who knew better, though, thought he'd be back. Not because Russo was lying, but because they know how tough it is to walk away forever, even if you intend to, especially when you have connections who still believe in you.
Why do they still believe in you?
Who knows? TNA rehired Russo last week, right before No Surrender, to lead a 3-man booking team along with current booking team members.
Why is he leading it?
Jeff Jarrett and Touch Mantell.
Oh, it's the worst 3!
There is some, like Dave has a different perspective that's kind of like it's still a little bit by committee, whereas PW Torch lean a little more like it is Russo's vision.
It is the worst 3
It
to ever book it.
It is. It's the worst 3. You got rid of the good people. Ousted from the committee by TNA President Dixie Carter were Scott D'Amore, Mike Tenay, and Jeremy Borash. None of whom, surprisingly, were happy about it.
Like, the 3 worst booking runs. Like, the only thing worse would be if they replaced Jarrett with Dusty.
Yeah. All the bad creatives.
Like, it is the 3 of the 4 worst booking errors in his company's history are now in charge. Like, and arguably Dutch is the worst of the 3. Like, that's the craziest bit.
Yeah, because, like you only have to go back and watch, or listen, I guess, to our coverage of 2004, when it was, like, Russo was only kind of vaguely involved and he was gone by like October, and then it was for the most part a Jeff Jarrett Dutch Mantell booked show that had some Russo fiddling here and there in the edges, and it was fucking dire. It was dreadful.
It's the worst 3. Why are we doing this?
It was like the most soul-crushing version of wrestling you've ever watched, where nothing happened, but also it was the period where TNA had the most content they've ever had, because they had Impact and the 2-hour weekly pay-per-views every week. So it was like 3 hours of nothing every single goddamn week.
Why are we doing this?
And that's our booking committee.
I don't want to do this anymore.
Kurt Angle, Vince Russo. All 3, D'Amore, Tenay, and Borash, remain with TNA, with Borash and D'Amore working behind the scenes for now, and Tenay remaining as an announcer. In recent years, Russo became a born-again Christian. Russo had vowed not to return to pro wrestling. In fact, at the end of the Ultimate Insiders DVD interview with Russo and Ed Ferrara, Russo said he wouldn't do it over again if he had the chance, and was through with wrestling for good. He said he hated pro wrestling for what it did to his life. So why did he feel that way, and why is he changing his mind? Sources say Russo is not short on cash, so it's not a money thing. It's said to be more the case of Russo having achieved the most success in his life in pro wrestling, and once he distanced himself from the hard feelings and resentment that stemmed from failed booking reigns, he got the itch to return and try and build on a successful note to end his career.
You know, if we...
He's going through many emotions here.
I mean, we just have to live through it. There's no solution here.
Like, my big problem is that, like, the creative at the moment is not infallible.
No. But, like, it's fine.
It's not like it's the best show of all time. It has problems, some of which are long-term problems that they haven't fixed. We'll talk about ratings again in a minute, because fucking we have to. But in terms of, like, the actual art of the television show, it has issues, but is mostly fine. My biggest problem with them replacing the 3 they replaced with Russo is you're basically saying the version of the show we have now, we just want a more extreme version of. Because, like, this show is not fundamentally different from a Vince Russo vision of wrestling. It's not like it's so ideologically opposed to Vince Russo's vision. There's very little wrestling on it. It's all about angles. It's all about promos. It's all about stories. And then you get a 2-minute match. So, like, the actual show as it is under this booking committee is very Russo adjacent already. So if you're like, this isn't working, if that is your belief, if your belief is the version or the vision of wrestling you have right now is ineffective for what you want to achieve, why are you hiring the guy who will just give you a more extreme version of that, instead of trying to find somebody who will give you something at least fundamentally different from what you have?
Because he's the fucking biggest carny ever and can convince people this is what they want.
Yeah, there's apparently a bunch of people. Terry Taylor is a big Russo guy, apparently, so there's apparently a bunch of people pushing for him. I'm sure Jarrett doesn't mind, because they're buddies.
Yes,
And I think Jarrett probably knows that he has more of a way of getting, like, his vision of wrestling through Russo than he probably does through, like, Mike Tenay.
Yeah.
He'll probably be like, that's bullshit and terrible, why are we doing this? Because by all accounts, we'll talk about that in a second, because Dave goes through, like, the dynamics of the existing committee, which I think are kind of interesting. But, like, it's the frustrating thing to me about, like, I don't know, the last 25 years of wrestling, that, like, you tried Russo, he had booked this company before. So, like, it's not like he didn't have a chance. So here you're wanting to make a change. We can disagree or agree about whether or not that change needs to be made. All right. But it's the same old people. It's the same people over and over again.
It's always the same people.
It's like, we'll give Russo a go. If Russo doesn't work, we'll give Eric Bischoff a go. Eric Bischoff doesn't work, we'll give Bruce Pritchard a go. Bruce Pritchard doesn't work, we'll give, like, Dave Lagana and John Gaburick a go. They don't work, let's go to other people that worked in other companies. There's no, like, let's find a new, different, exciting vision of wrestling.
And you know what the thing is? The only time in, like, the last decade where it has worked... Okay, last 2 decades, right?
Yep.
The 2 places that worked and grew in that time, New Japan and All Elite Wrestling.
What's the uniting factor between those two, Liam?
Both were bookers getting the chance for the first time.
And, God, did they bring new ideas and a different vision to wrestling?
And it worked!
But what if Liam, you know, they could have done the new thing. Fine. New people? No. What if they hired, like, I don't know.
Paul Heyman.
Yes. One of the same fucking 4 people we've been cycling through for 25 goddamn years.
You know, like, okay, even at the most jaded person ever, right? Like, objectively, like, the Tony booking thing worked for at least 2 years, right?
Yep.
Even the most jaded person in the world, the New Japan thing worked for a minimum 7 years.
Yep.
So it's like, there's clearly value in putting new people in that position. Or giving them their shot at the top, you know? Like, cause, like, I'm sure Gary was involved in things back and forth, but, like, giving him a shot to, like, just go for it and have his vision be the company.
Even if you wanted to extend that to Triple H.
Yeah. Which, like, people like now, right? Bad man gone.
We're still doing the same old shit. It's still the same people over and over again. Instead of just being like, let's do something new. Let's do something exciting. It's so frustrating. It's really frustrating to watch this. As I said, like, you can debate about whether this change needed to be made, which I don't think it really did. You can debate that to the moon, but, like, Russo is the worst. He's the worst. What are you doing? And he's going to give you the same thing, just badder. He's going to give you a more incoherent, worse version of the thing you're doing right now. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Because TNA has been building toward Bound for Glory for more than a month and considers it their biggest annual pay-per-view, there is little flexibility to shake everything up. So until that pay-per-view takes place, Russo will be working within the booking plans that had already been written. After Bound for Glory, though, it's expected Jarrett and Mantell will defer to Russo per Dixie Carter's wishes and let his vision take over. At that point, all bets are off.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for the fucking chaos. We're going prime time, baby. Let's just fucking go. Let's go fucking nuts with it.
You notice the shift pretty quick as well.
I'm ready for the Fire Russo chants.
Well, there was a "This is stupid" chant on the pay-per-view.
Yeah, but they don't know yet.
Russo wants to make his mark and realizes that there is pressure from above to take TNA in a new direction that will lead to better ratings and better pay-per-view buy rates. Which, like, you just got Kurt Angle. You'll get it by default. It's so annoying to me.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not the case that Russo will change things. You just signed Kurt Angle. Multiple sources indicate that frustration among at least a half dozen wrestlers had grown to the point that there was going to be a major rebellion against the status quo that could have a drastic effect on TNA's business.
Who the fuck was whining?
Every time I say it, I read a quote like this, BG James.
But it's like, who gives a shit if BG James fucking walks?
Apparently Dixie.
That's so stupid.
Some of those frustrated wrestlers are fans of Russo, so their concerns have been assuaged for the time being. A lot of
fans of Russo's go fuck yourself.
A lot was going to happen, says one source. So much talent was frustrated, it was ready to explode, it wouldn't have been pretty. Also ominous is the fact that he has not been watching regularly the past few years, and that means he doesn't have his finger on the pulse of what TNA's target market has been exposed to. Without that knowledge, it's difficult to figure out what those fans he's trying to reach are most eager to see. One of the little things dropped in is like, oh, he's also a fan of Samoa Joe, which he's fucking not.
Yeah, he's a fan of Samoa Joe, but he's gonna be like, how can I make this into some real wrestling?
It's the same thing. If you listen to our friends at Days of Thunder, who have covered Russo's arrival to WCW recently, it was kind of the same thing where like the stuff Russo was like leaking into the media is like, I love like Buff Bagwell and Billy Kidman and Shane Douglas and whoever. Like he was listing off Rey Mysterio, you know, the kind of younger, underserved guys who in theory should be pushed.
Yeah, but it's like, if you love him so much, why are they still underpushed?
And then yeah, he gets there, and even if he's doing stuff with them, the stuff is garbage, and he doesn't help them at all.
Probably thinks he's doing well.
So Dave offers more like insight onto how like the existing committee worked, which I think is kind of interesting. Russo is one of 3 on the committee. The negative of the 5-man committee is that it was nobody's pure view. You got more ideas, but a lot of it came down to voting. Generally, Jarrett was steering the direction, as he will be now. Anything he wanted, he was going to get automatic approval of Mantell and Borash, and it wasn't like it was a lot of 3-2 votes as much as everybody contributing ideas, with Jarrett usually making the final choices. It will be the same thing here. For the most part, the TV ended up based around Jarrett, and if that changes, it's going to be Jarrett making the call, not Russo.
Whatever, man.
The 2 big changes made in the pay-per-view by the new committee was changing the planned Chris Sabin title win over Loki. That match should be saved in a time capsule for wrestling fans 100 years from now to see as a definition of a finish ruining a good match, says Dave. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
The blow-up doll finish?
Yeah, but like, a really good match?
Yeah.
The whole fucking thing was shenanigans. What are you talking about?
They also changed plans for LAX to keep the tag titles, putting them back on Styles and Daniels to keep the program going to meet in a steel cage match next month. The old direction was to try and rebuild the weakened the X division, with Styles and Daniels going back to it as big stars for the proposed 2-hour television show, figuring that they'd have the time for long weekly matches to showcase wrestling. And LAX was going to face the Naturals, who Dave says has no chance of getting over. I'm fine with them. I don't agree with putting Styles and Daniels back in the tag division. They should be moving up, not back down. But yeah, interesting that those are the kind of 2 changes that were made to No Surrender anyway.
This is stupid. Why are we still here?
You're really well, actually, you're viewing from different versions of It's All Over. You're like, it's all over, I'm going to embrace it, versus defeated, it's all over.
I'm going through like all the stages of grief
that TNA fans would have felt at this moment in 2006.
Yeah.
Jim Cornette has made no secret of the fact that he has no respect for Vince Russo, based largely on Russo mocking
Hell
Jim Ross
yeah,
at the Oklahoma
our
City
savior,
Nitro.
Jim. I'm sorry for any bad things I ever said about you.
Dave, when this is announced, Dave is like, why not try Cornette?
Exactly, he's right there.
Even Dave is like, your best success story is Samoa Joe, who was booked well by Gabe Sapolsky, so why not try Gabe?
Again, he's right.
But no, Russo.
I mean, they never would, but like, he's right.
And in Cornette's world, when he doesn't like you, that means if he sees you, he wants to fight you, which seems extreme, but fine.
That's awesome. I mean, nah, bad. Ooh.
It's just who he is, and even his friends just laugh about his hot-headed nature. He despises Russo so much that he even has told people that during negotiations with TNA management, either when he first arrived or recently when he signed long-term, that he would not work with Russo should he return. Which is interesting that all the way back in June, he's like, you guys thinking about Russo? You guys thinking about that? Huh? Cornette suspected he might because of Russo's past stints as TNA booker and his friendship with Jeff Jarrett. So when news hit that Russo had been rehired, immediately many people began wondering what that meant for Cornette. For one, Cornette is not jealous of Russo being hired. He does not have interest at this time, despite his history as a lead booker and being on the booking committee for WCW, WWF, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and OVW. He is said to be learning to enjoy life without the stress of the responsibility of booking a weekly TV show and managing wrestlers and their egos. However, at a convention appearance last weekend, when asked about Russo, he made it clear he expected TNA management to keep he and Russo apart and not expect him to work in any way.
That rules.
That means Jarrett and Dutch Mantel likely being the messengers from the booking committee in giving Cornette his instructions. Cornette and Russo coexisted at Sunday's pay-per-view at No Surrender and the TV taping following, but nobody saw them come within earshot of each other. Regarding the booking committee, one wrestler was overheard saying, "The monster still lives. They cut off both the arms and one of his legs," Scott D'Amore, JB, and Mike Tenay, but they left his other leg and his head attached in terms of Dutch and Jarrett. Which, yeah, that's the other thing. If you are, again, going to be like, this creative is bad and it needs to change, full change. New team. New vision. None of this, like, half-measure bullshit where we're like a little of old, a little of new. Like, be bold about it. Don't be fucking cowards.
Yeah.